Hi, welcome to the podcast by the poor for the poor. My name is Tanya Matinga and I am a deficient economist. I want to challenge the African nations, all Africans, to be proud of who they are. Before any revolution, I still remember Amilcar Cabral. One of the key messages that we received from Amilcar Cabral was around our cultural power. He said before any revolution, before the political revolution, we need to have a cultural revolution. We need to be proud of who we are. We need to have pride in who we are. Our identity must be the one that makes us proud. We import so much from abroad that we even import knowledge, even that which is our identity. We leave it behind and we go and borrow foreign identity. So it's this loss of identity that actually makes us believe that we are poor. We've even imported the news about our own standard, our own category. We've been referred to as one of the poorest countries in the world. We've imported that narrative and we believed in that narrative because we've lost that which is what defines us. I am reminded by Robert Mugabe, with all his human faults, because for as long as we're human beings, we have faults. We will never be pure. There's no one human being alive that is perfect. He wasn't perfect just as any other. But there are things about him that remind me of how solid he was in terms of identity and culture. Zimbabwe is one of the few countries where you can walk into a council of ministers and they're talking in Shona. They're proud of their language. They're proud of who they are. Yes, we speak in English. Yes, we honor the English. It's a business, it's a commercial language. But it should not deny us of who we are. Because the poverty that we're experiencing, first and foremost, is intellectual. We are empty intellectually, all of us. 8.5 billion humans, we are poor because our spirits are poor. There are those who are poor because they believe others must be poor and they are rich. There are those who are poor because they need others to be poor so that they can feel superior. So the poverty is it's a systemic pandemic across the board. Robert Mugabe, I still remember when the crisis hit in Zimbabwe. His education system was so solid. It was and it still is today, even after the economic depression, after the crash that we saw and that was experienced, which was watched across the world. I do not know how many countries in the world would survive the economic crisis that Zimbabwe suffered and still be standing firm on the ground. There are some Zimbabweans, in fact, that were so patriotic that never even left the country during the crisis. They believed in their country. They believed in who they were. Zimbabwe is one of the few countries that suffered such a crisis, but the spirit is so firm that they're still standing today as they build recovery. Because the education system is so solid, and it was one of the impositions of the president, Robert Mugabe. He said, I will have education for my people. I will have education for my people. You walk across Zimbabwe. It is one of the only few countries where the beggar, the person who is begging for food on the streets, he understands more mathematics than a master or a doctorate in other countries. He knows numbers, he knows algebra. The person on the street, he's educated. You walk into, I will not exaggerate, but more than 50% of financial institutions, I don't want to say 80 because, let me be conservative. You go to South Africa, you go and find out who is leading the banks, who is leading insurance companies, who is leading the big institutions in the country. Most of them are Zimbabweans because they are solid intellectually. Their education is solid. So when we have pride in who we are, we start to understand the importance of who we are, and we impose ourselves. But if we don't know who we are, it shows even when we come to meetings in Davos, in the United Nations. We go in meetings, the aura of how we present ourselves. It says, I am poor, I've come to beg. I am poor, I've come to ask for a favor. I am poor, I'm not bringing anything, I've come to ask because I depend on you. I depend on you to save me. I depend on you even to tell me that I am not important, to the point that I actually culturally am weak. So I even borrow the clothes that you wear. I borrow the way that you think. I do not believe. You will find a lot of African countries, African governments, they feel more confident when they have a white consultant, without disrespecting the capabilities of white consultants. They feel that they will not hire local consultants because they don't trust that a black person can offer them any knowledge. They feel more comfortable to sign contracts worth millions and millions and millions of dollars because it's a white person. That's the level of inferiority that we have. So you will find a black ministry, a black company trusting a foreign company to tell them how to do things. But the foreign company has no knowledge of the cultural differences in this African country. But they rather have that because they would rather have that from the foreigners. That's how inferior we feel. That's the level of inferiority. So we go into these countries and we ask for money. I mean, I can, we talk a lot about scarcity. We don't have resources. We build our budgets. African governments will build a budget on the basis of some of it will come from the foreign countries. So we cannot even feed ourselves. We cannot even feed. So how is anyone going to respect you? Because we lose dignity when we need to beg. When we need to ask from outsiders, we lose dignity. No one will respect a parent who has to ask for food from his neighbor. A parent who cannot even feed himself. So I will impose my policies on you because I'm giving you the money. I will impose, so you will find that most of the policies in African governments are not policies that were designed by local conditions, are not policies that favor the African people. Because if I give you something, there's nothing for free. If I give you something, there will be a condition that is attached to that which you're giving me. And most of the time, the conditions are prejudicial. The conditions are prejudicial. They're prejudicial to the African person, the very same beneficiaries of that financing will be prejudiced, either by higher interest rates, either by conditions that, oh no, this is how you're going to solve your nutrition, this is how you're going to solve your education, even if that education does not favor this African person. But because I'm receiving, I will pay a higher price. So for me, until such time African governments are able to design their budgets on the basis of the resources they have, no matter how limited they are. So if we cannot afford to educate ourselves, our people, with our own money, if we cannot find creativity in the way that we organize our lives, we organize our policies, we organize our structures, we organize the way we live, no one will respect us. We will never. It's a dream. This eradication of poverty will continue to be an idea perpetuated by those who require that we continue poor because it's convenient. Because there is no belief that we can be equals. Because if we're equals, then I will lose something, which is far from the truth. So there has to come a time when we negate. Even the idea that we're coming to discuss poverty and we're traveling from African countries to go abroad to discuss that which is a problem in Africa. This is going to be discussed by people who do not even understand this poverty. So even the meetings, these conferences, the National Assembly, it has to happen in Africa. Because the beneficiary requires those resources. If we need to borrow money and ask for money or beg for money for health, for education, for technology, for you name it, what about the money that we're spending with the intermediaries? How much money are we wasting just organizing things with buildings, with lights, with electricity? We are spending money with the aspects that are administrative. That is why the beneficiary doesn't get the access to that money. He gets, the most insignificant part of that money. So let us restructure even the way that we meet to discuss these issues. Let us meet in Africa, because if we meet in Africa, the foreigners will come with their money and spend it in Africa and leave it here. So the money will circulate in Africa. Now, you have a minister who has to go to Davos. He has to take 10 people. He has to take his protocol. He has to take his secretary. He has to take his... They are traveling. There are people in African governments who are building mansions on the basis of just travel money. We're spending in the hotels in foreign countries. We are building their economies even when we're meeting to discuss our situation. So we need to really understand whether there's a lack of resources or there's a lack of will, because the resources are there. We're spending these resources. I still remember I used to be an advisor to the Minister of Transport, and one of the Ministers of Transport, I think I advised at least 3 Ministers of Transport, and one of them said to me, if people worked from home, we would actually spare more money, because by having government officials coming into the buildings, just toilet paper. So it's not that the toilet paper is distributed in the offices. People then take it home. The water that they drink, the tea, the sugar, the biscuits, the juices that they bring to the meetings. And considering that all these institutions are meeting oriented, how many meetings do you think they have per day, per week, per month? How much money is spent per meeting? That money should be helping another young child, one more village to be educated. The electricity, the aircons, they run 24 hours a day. In fact, when they leave the offices at 3 o'clock, at 4 o'clock, they don't even switch it off. It's not yours. You're not using your own money to pay for it, so you don't even care. The aircon will be left from the day before to the next day, and the next, over the weekend, the aircons are going on. How much money is there? So how can we say that there is no money to educate our people? Why do we not have education for 100% of the populations? Why is it still only benefiting 20% of the populations? Health systems. You go into a hospital. You walk into a hospital. 1 bed, 5 people, 5 patients. Some of them are dying. Some of them are infecting each other. So they're getting worse in the hospital. So how are we spending the little money that we have? So that we stop saying we need money from outside, because until such time we stop the dependency, we are going to continue to perpetuate, in fact, to make sure that poverty never fades. And even though this is the intention of some, as an African person, as an African people, we need to go back to who we are and why we are, and have a consciousness, have individual sovereignty, to say that I cannot be comfortable to sleep at night when my fellow African in the village does not have electricity, when my fellow African does not have, when we are spending just with nothingness. Why are we even traveling abroad when we still don't have enough for the rest of the people who are in Africa? We should resolve our issues with African policies, with African intent. We need to have the integrity, the sovereignty, the calling that it says, I will not be comfortable, just like they did in the past. The Kwame Nkrumahs, they were not comfortable, not until they saved themselves and their immediate families, until they saved the continent. Pan-Africanism was on the basis of the United Nations of Africa. So why can Africa not unite to a point where we say we become arrogant with our Africa, we become categoric about our Africa, and we say until we fix Africa, let us stop engaging. Let us stop being influenced by that which does not benefit us at all. To some extent it will benefit here and there, but it's not benefiting us to a point where there is no reason why there's some people who should be, we should have strategies to eliminate hunger in 30 years. Why do we still not have 3 meals a day? There is no reason to not have 3 meals a day. There's nothing that justifies. The money is there. We saw it with COVID. We can change things overnight. COVID taught us that we can change things overnight. It can be literally waking up one day and making a decision and saying, we do not accept the status quo, we are going to change it. Overnight, we learned that we don't need 1,000 workers in companies. Most companies realize that actually I have 10,000 people, I only need 1,000. Overnight, companies realize that actually I'm wasting a lot of money in the offices. People can work from home. Overnight, so I'm saying that, and the money was there to resolve COVID-related issues. So the money that is being argued that is not there, it exists. We saw it with the Lehman Brothers in 2008 when there was a financial crisis, when the banks in America were facing a meltdown. Suddenly, the money was there. So the money is there. Let us make a decision. If we go to Davos, if we go to the United Nations Assembly, the next time we go to the UN, the next time we have a General Assembly, let's actually not take any of the documents we've printed. Let's leave it all behind. Let us leave all the information, the strategies, the arguments that we thought we were going to have. Let's go there empty with one decision. Let us go there with one decision. The decision being, we want to make sure from this day forward, we want to make sure that 8.4 billion people have 3 meals a day. That is the only decision we're making. Forget about all the other decisions. We'll get to those after. We'll then after the 3 meals a day, because we need a creative mind to be educated, then we'll talk about how we're going to train and educate people. So let us go with the decision that we're going to resolve the issue of hunger categorically. From now on, no human being will sleep without eating. And when they come back, or when they go back, since the meeting must be happening in Africa, when they go back and when we stay, we are decisive about the 3 meals a day. Because the issue is not a lack of strategy, it's a lack of willingness. When we decide, when we come to the decision that we want to end poverty, or we want to end, let's not even say end poverty because it's too far-fetched, it's too big. We are ending hunger. We're just ending hunger. And we're reorganizing ourselves in such a way that we all distribute what we have to eat. We will all have. It's a decision. It's willingness. It's not about resources. Because we saw it during COVID that, suddenly we can actually learn from home. Because in Africa, if we can agree that, no, we are giving education to all Africans, it's going to be a matter of, okay, the 10% that was privileged, how do we distribute that knowledge? How do we actually start having parents contribute to education? We saw that during COVID. Parents were educating their children. So we're making a decision that everyone will be educated, everyone will have access to information, everyone will have access to knowledge, everyone will have access. And once we make that decision, then it's easy to say, well, okay, actually, let us distribute ourselves to make sure that in village X, village B, even if we all just adopted the villages where we come from. So, if President Cyril Ramaphosa, he comes from he's a vendor, he goes and says, the vendor people, I will be responsible for the vendor people. The president and the vice president will just be responsible for the vendor people. And then we go to, we say, okay, where is Thabo Mbeki from? He will go in his province, he will just educate that. So we are all just going to be focused on where we come from. So in every African country, you just pick up where we are just deciding that we will end this. Then it means that actually we shouldn't even be in a situation where we have a poverty. So it's a choice to be and whether it's a choice because we are spiritually empty, whether it's a choice because we do not believe in ourselves, whether it's a choice, but it is a choice because it's unnecessary in the first place. It's unnecessary in the first place. So we can make that decision. What did we see during COVID? That actually all the medication, and in fact, it reminds me when Thabo Mbeki was, when HIV and AIDS was became a problem 20 years ago. Thabo Mbeki started talking about beetroot and garlic and potato. He started talking about natural stuff that in Africa we have it predominantly. He was not saying do not take the medication. He was saying yes, because the pharmaceutical industry is a $1 trillion industry oriented towards, no, we are going to solve things only with medication. That is not the only solution. He was saying, why don't we also use what we have? It's culturally ours. It's an asset that we have. We have in dominant proportions. So why do we not actually combine whatever we are getting from outside and what we have inside? And he was highly criticized at the time. He was highly misunderstood. But what he was saying is that actually the leaf, the green stuff under the ground in African soil is healing. It's a medication. Garlic is one of the most potent antibiotics, and it's in the African soil in abundance. But no, we prefer to take all these farmers because, you know, there's somebody who is making a lot of money with the farmers, and it's because they package it well, they spend a lot of money in the marketing, so it actually begins to take more prominence than the natural stuff. We saw it during COVID. People were taking moringa. They were taking these African, the garlic, the ginger, natural stuff. So what happened? At what point, because in the past, when we did not have access to all this medication, people were healing themselves naturally. But because it's not convenient, because somebody needs to make more money every day. It's not longer about morality. It's no longer about what is important. It's not longer about saving a life. It's about making money. When did we get to a point where money was more important than people? When did we lose ourselves? When did we get to a point where money took precedence, even in the way that we define value? It's more monetary. So we say that if it's not monetary, it has no value. If it's not monetary, if it's not in monetary terms, it doesn't count. And I would like to argue that the real difference between wealthy countries and poor countries is the packaging, is the marketing, is the way that we've, you know, packaged. I love the American system. I love how the Americans are really proud of their culture. Americans are so proud. They make every American child believe that they're a hero. Every American child believes that they're Spider-Man, believes that they're Superman, believes that they're a superhero, because the American education system, even the filming industry, is educating youngsters. If you listen to the American movies, children's movies, the children believe that they have superpowers because the Americans have packaged it so well. That is where they differ with we Africans. That's the difference. It's the packaging. We fail to package our story in a way that we can convince ourselves and believe that actually we are wealthy, because we are. But we cannot transmit this narrative because first and foremost, we don't even believe in it. Second most, we don't have the ability, or we have refused to package it so well that we can make our people believe it first, and then to begin to take it out to the world. The packaging, the design. We are wealthy. I mean, if you compare resources in America and resources in Africa, we are wealthier, but they've packaged it better. We've got money underground. We have so much money underground. Wherever you see a military infrastructure, you must know that the fight is because of the wealth underground. Wherever there's conflict in Africa, there's a lot of money around there. So we Africans have a responsibility to claim it back. We have a responsibility with the next generation to claim it back and then impose ourselves. Because we talk about, we were wanting resources from abroad, but actually what's happening is that we take our own raw materials and we send it out and they package it for us and they bring it back. Like our coffee, they take the beans, they package it, and then we're buying chocolates from Switzerland. But who's the rich and who's the poor? We are the rich ones. We are the wealthy ones. But we don't package ourselves accordingly. We have lost the sense of identity to the point that we've even delegated someone else to package us. This is the crux of the matter. These are the things that need to change. We need to believe in ourselves. We need to change status quo. We need to be the wealthy Africans that we are. That is our responsibility. See you next time.